Alright, so ROM hacks for Game Boy games to add Super Game Boy enhancements. I didn't know this was a thing. I don't know how long this has been a thing for, but it seems like recently a few cool games here have popped up. So we'll take a look at two games. First up is DuckTales 2. Again, this was a Game Boy game without any Super Game Boy support. And this ROM, it's a patch file. You need to apply it to your own ROM file. I'll have the links to the ROM hacking links in the description. Yeah, again, this is a ROM hack for DuckTales 2, and this adds Super Game Boy support. This one, I think, just adds the border. I mean, obviously, they could do more with ROM hacks. They could change some other things while they're at it. But I think this one just adds the border. It says that the border was taken from artwork from DuckTales 2 for the NES. So it's the map screen for DuckTales 2 for the NES, and of course adapted to fit the Super Game Boy. So, nothing amazing, but this is pretty cool. Obviously, if you have, an EverDrive or something, you could flash this to your own cart and play this on a real Super Game Boy if you just like playing the Super Game Boy and having the proper color bezels on the Super Nintendo. Very cool. So next up, we got Kid Dracula. Again, an excellent Game Boy game that never had any Super Game Boy support. So here we go. As we can see, we now have an awesome, colorful border. This artwork was taken from Parodius for the PlayStation 1, where apparently Kid Dracula's character makes a cameo. And of course, that artwork, again, edited or adapted to fit the Super Game Boy border. Again, I don't know if anything else was tweaked in this, but of course, being a ROM hack, you could add other, life, quality of life improvements, as sometimes Game Boy games, for example, get ROM hacks for changing other things, and you could implement that with the Super Game Boy enhancements. I think, again, this one's pretty much just adding the border, though. But again, Kid Dracula is an awesome game, and if you like playing it on the Super Game Boy, well, again, if you got a flash cart, you could play this on a real Super Game Boy and have this awesome artwork on your Super Nintendo. It looks great. This is really cool, and I'd like to see more of these. Who knows what we could see down the road. And knowing what the Super Game Boy can do, remember, it can do more than just the border. It can add custom color palettes. It can add Super Nintendo sound effects in some games. Donkey Kong 94, you had enhanced graphics in some of the map menus, and I think, again, you had enhanced sound effects with the Super Game Boy version. So the Super Game Boy can potentially add even more to these Game Boy games. And again, I don't know how long these ROM hacks have been around, but they're pretty cool. Again, links in the description, but you'll need to supply your own ROM files. They're not hard to find. The end. See you guys later.